And welcome to Hannity. And tonight we are broadcasting from North Charleston, South Carolina. 2016 Republican presidential candidate, former Florida Governor Jeb Bush, along with his brother, the 43rd President of the United States, George W. Bush, will be here for an exclusive interview. Now, it's the first time President Bush has been on the campaign trail since leaving office. And here's what he said earlier tonight. Watch this.
I came here for two reasons. One, because I care deeply about Jeb. And two, because I care deeply about our country. Here are some things I think people ought to look for in the next president. Starters, I think you ought to look to someone who's had executive experience. He's going to assemble a great team of people to whom he'll listen. He'll create a culture in which they can deliver not just the good news, but the bad. He'll listen carefully to their advice. And then he's got the backbone necessary to make the tough decisions on behalf of the American people.
And joining us now for an exclusive interview, 2016 Republican presidential candidate, former Florida Governor Jeb Bush, and the 43rd President of the United States, George W. Bush. Good to see you, Governor. How are you?
Thanks, Sean.
Mr. President, how are you,
yes, sir?
You know, I thought you gave this up for Lent. What happened?
Brother asked. And I love him dearly and know he'll be a great president.
I've interviewed you post-leaving office a number of times. You have wanted this run for a long time.
Correct.
Yeah. Tell us why.
Because I love America, and I know we face enormous problems, but I also know we can deal with them and handle them. It's, I'm not an expert in a lot of things, but I'm pretty knowledgeable about what it takes to be president. Since I were one. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's got what it takes. He's got character, backbone, philosophy, vision. He can deal with crises.
Yeah.
He'd make a really good president.
You have been through this yourself.
Yeah.
South Carolina was particularly tough in 2000. Really?
I don't know.
You know, not that tough?
I mean, we won.
So it wasn't that tough.
Yeah.
But
I found New Hampshire a little tougher in 2000.
Is that right?
I lost.
It's a grind.
Yeah.
When you watch, because I know how close you are to your brother, you watch the attacks and the back and forth, to get you mad, to get you frustrated?
No, it doesn't get me mad. I get puzzled sometimes. But, no, I know Jeb can handle it.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, these campaigns need to be tough because the job's tough. And we want to see who's got the ability to endure. Because if you wilt on the campaign trail, you're darn sure wilt in the Oval Office.
I think it's a good process. Governor, you've been through this. I thought it was a pretty fierce debate on Saturday night. How'd you feel about it?
I felt great about it. I got to talk about national security issues and showed that I had a steady hand, and the front-running candidate kind of lost his temper. It didn't go his way. He lost it. And when you're President of the United States, based on what I can see, you can't be getting all upset at a drop of a hat. You've got to have a steadiness and a assuredness so that the rest of the world knows that the United States will be there if your friends and enemies can't see someone who is unhinged.
Am I fair in my assessment that I thought you've gotten better in every debate? Do you think you started out slower maybe than you wanted? Would you like a redo, if I can use your brother's words?
You know what?
Some of those early ones?
I've gotten better at what George was the best in the business at, which is discipline, message discipline. I'm half as good as he is. He stayed on message. And over time, just the cumulative effect of it, you know, allowed him to be a president 2 times, which is pretty hard to do. So I'm getting better at it, sure. I'm striving to get better. And we're making good progress.
You use the name Jeb.
Yeah.
You've had a dad who's president. You've had a brother who's president. And I've asked you this before. Does the last name hurt in as much as... Why are you laughing?
Because I use the name W.
Okay. We got W, we got Jeb, and we've got Pop, right?
Look, Jeb has been the slogan since 1994.
Yeah.
I had 3 races for governor, the largest swing state in the country. And it's part of my brand. It's not that I'm disowning my family. This is hard for the rest of the world to say, but look, I'm proud of George. I'm proud of my dad. Everybody loves my mom. I'm proud to be a Bush. But people want to know where you stand. What's your record? What are your ideas to help people? It's about them. It's not about our family. You know, that's the issue at hand here, is that most families are really struggling right now. And a lot of people are scared about the future when they see the unraveling of the world, and they see the lack of U.S. leadership and the people running not giving them much assurance other than a few of us.
These really are tough times. Economically, you know, look at the number of Americans out of work and poverty on food stamps, home ownership down, median income down, and then you've got a world with ISIS, Al-Qaeda. These are tough times.
Very much so.
You know what troubles me is that the lessons of 9/11 are being forgotten by a lot of people, and that is the human condition elsewhere matters to our national security. I tell people that I remember studying Pearl Harbor, and I wanted to, you know, mainly tried to memorize the date so I didn't get a B on the quiz. And but it affected our dad's life to the point where he didn't go to college. Your dad. Yeah. Same on 9/11. And if we let down our guard against this group of thugs, they will hurt us again. And the good news is Jeb won't let down his guard.
You think about the San Bernardino killings of innocent people. They were making pipe bombs in their garage. This was a woman who was radicalized before she came. She got a J-1 visa
from Pakistan,
and no one in the State Department thought it was they thought it was a violation of civil liberties to check her Facebook page.
Unbelievable.
Where she advanced jihad before she got her visa. I mean, we've got to be vigilant. If in the post-9/11 era, if we just allow kind of to move away from protecting the homeland, we're going to have more of these things.
You know, what's interesting about this election cycle is that foreign policy is a central campaign issue. It wasn't in 2000, for example. And so I hope the voters take a look and see who's got the clearest-eyed view of the world and who's got a plan to deal with those who would do us harm. I've looked at Jeb's plan. I know how solid it is. The other thing that's needed in the White House, and Jeb understands this, is you set a goal, defeat ISIS, and then you call upon the people who know how to help you achieve that goal. That would be the military and the intelligence community. And and Jeb respects them. And that's what you really want. You want somebody who understands how to make decisions and somebody who knows who can help you achieve goals.
You know, it's interesting in this campaign, we're talking about national security, how almost relitigating post 9/11 and the Iraq war has become such a big issue. It became a big issue on Saturday night. You know, I have a tape of Bill Clinton where he admits in a speech in Long Island where he was offered bin Laden on a silver platter, but he goes on to give an answer that, well, I couldn't justify. There was no legal justification to take him, even though I knew he was a threat. And then I look at cities that you were fighting for and won: Mosul, Ramadi, Fallujah, Tikrit. And yet, because through the prism of politics, we start wars, we don't finish them, and then we lose. So we lost nearly 5,000 people.
Yeah, that's the lesson of Iraq, was the fortitude and the courage of the men and women in uniform that fought so valiantly, led by a commander-in-chief that did something that was not politically popular but was the right thing to do. When he started, there wasn't much support in Congress, but because of Lindsey Graham, John McCain, and many others, it built, and the surge was successful. And then to squander that is the lesson of history. It's that once you have the win, you can't just, you got to make sure that there's security at the end. And by abandoning, George told me that he would make have teleconferences with Maliki once a week. Isn't that right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that was being all in.
Right.
And making sure that Maliki didn't wander off and resort back to all of this sectarian violence and, you know, dividing up of Iraq. The minute he left, and Petraeus and Crocker left as well, the diplomatic and military elements that created the stability, fragile but a stable Iraq, went away. Yeah. And I think that's the lesson. Same in Libya, same in other places. You got to be all in to create the security, and then you can
I think the other lesson, Sean, is that ISIS can be defeated.
Explain that.
Well, that's what the surge. I mean, I know they call themselves Al-Qaeda, the same type of people. They murder the innocent. They terrorize the tribes. They are thugs. They have public executions.
It's evil in our time.
It is evil in our time. And yet we defeated them. And we defeated them by giving hope to people on the ground. Most people don't want to live under the clutches of these thugs.
Yeah.
And if given a chance, they will rise up and secure their freedoms.
You were talking about World War II earlier, and my dad, like yours, fought in World War II. He spent 4 years in the Pacific. There was an alliance. This came up, and this, to me, is interesting because you worked with Vladimir Putin.
Yeah.
And, you know, here is, in the Cold War, we've got the Soviet Union and the United States standing side by side to defeat Nazism. And, you know, enemy of my enemy is my friend, right? And you don't think it's a good idea. You don't trust Putin, Governor, to
No, look,
if he wants to help us defeat ISIS, not a good idea. You don't think he does?
There's no evidence of it. He spends 95% of his air power to attack the troops that we're supporting.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, it's pretty clear, and it did point out, I think, Mr. Trump's either naivete or just lack of interest in the subject to suggest. I mean, part of it is that Putin said something nice about him. And I've noticed if you say something nice about Donald Trump, he really likes it, and if you challenge him, he doesn't. So I think part of this is just...
You've enjoyed these debates with Mr. Trump, haven't you?
Well, I enjoy taking him on because I love my country, and I love the Republican Party. I love the conservative cause, and he's hijacking it, and so I feel obliged. I don't know what the political consequences of this are. There may be a reason no one else is doing it.
Yeah. All right, I got a little bit of a joke. I've tried to ask your brother questions, the president, sir, about President Obama. Have you secretly, I know I'm not even going to waste a question on it, but you've asked him, right? He'll tell you privately how he feels about President Obama, right? Because he won't tell me.
Talk about message discipline.
Yeah, that's really good message. That's probably the highest form of it, right?
Why don't you tell people why? And the reason why
Because you respect the office.
I do. And I think the office is more important than the occupant. And
that's pretty profound, because you've stuck to it now for over 7 years.
Yeah.
I don't have that discipline. I unload every day. So
what did you wear when you went into the Oval Office every day?
Coat and tie.
Coat and tie.
Yeah.
And what was the rug? Tell the rug story.
The rug was
your wife Laura
designed it, which is lesson one of leadership, and that is to listen to people who can give you good advice. That's what Jeb will do as president.
Yeah.
I didn't know much about rugs. She did, and designed a rug that looked very optimistic. And so it's really important for the voters to determine who's got an optimistic outlook, who can see a better future. And it's one of the things that I loved about Jeb's governorship in Florida. He inspired people because of his optimism, and he'll do the same thing as president.
I've talked to him about his record. Your record's very conservative. First state that brought school vouchers.
Yep.
You went to a AAA rating. You went from a deficit to a huge surplus. You created 1.5 million jobs. And what do you think, because you had a brother and father as president, what does that add to you if you get that office?
Well, I've had a front row seat seeing history unfold. I've seen the recognition that it's never perfect. You don't control everything. In fact, I would say the biggest lesson of watching my dad and George is that the big challenge is unforeseen. We don't know what it'll be.
9/11.
Yeah. There was no campaign issue about 9/11 prior to it. September 10th, I was with him in Sarasota. We were talking about, he had an interesting discussion with Tram Hudson, my friend, about a book they were reading about the Civil War.
Yeah.
I mean, the world changed, and that's what's going to happen. It's almost inevitable. We could have a pandemic. You could have a natural disaster or an attack on our country in some form. It's
when you think
almost
about
assured.
when you think about the reality or possibility, it's scary.
Yeah, so the question is, who do you want is sitting behind the big desk when that happens? And that's my case, is that I have a steady hand, and I will lead the country through tumultuous events. That's what I believe I can do, because I learned how to do it when I was governor of the state of Florida.
Yeah, I know you can do it.
All right, I think you got one vote right there.